There is lots happening in Massachusetts. It's a great time to be Secretary of Housing and Economic Development. Stephanie introduced the agenda that I work on. When then Governor-elect Baker called me and said, Jay, I'd like you to be my Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, I said yes, turned to the friends that I was with and said that I've just become the Secretary of Economic Development for the state. And one of my friends, Paul, said, that's great, you can get my barber his license back. And I said, Paul, why would I be able to do that? He said, because barbers come under you. I said, no, they don't. And he said, yes, they do, so we bet $1. The next time I saw him, I gave him the $1 because I had also accepted the role as Secretary not only of Housing and Economic Development, but Consumer Affairs, Banking, Insurance, telecommunications, Division of Standards, and Professional Licensure, which license barbers. So anyone that's not happy with their haircut, let me know, and I'm happy to talk to the inspectors. I'm not going to make any jokes about needing to have hair to complain about the haircuts. I wouldn't make that joke this early in the morning. Today what we are going to do is we are not going to relive the past. So if we were to talk about the problems that exist in promoting growth in the Middlesex Street corridor, everyone who was at last year's event would just have to remember last year because we talk about those problems. Traffic is traffic. High housing costs are high housing costs. Needing to get employees to and from work is important. We're going to try to avoid that a little bit. We will touch upon that a little bit, but really what we want to talk about, really what we want to give you all for information to go back to your businesses where you're helping to develop properties or lease properties, or back to your communities as you're planning for growth, or as your consultants who are advising clients about where they should position themselves in the economy. We want to talk a little bit about what's happened over the last 12 months, what we're seeing may happen in the next 5 years, and a little bit about new and innovative things that businesses or government are doing to position themselves in this very competitive marketplace. I'm going to start off by saying what's happened in the last 12 hours. 12 hours ago, I was at the State House looking forward to the adoption of a new economic development bill. The legislature did not disappoint. So a little bit after 12 o'clock last night, or I should say early this morning, the legislature adopted Governor Baker's second major economic development bill over the last 3.5 years. So we congratulate and thank the legislature for doing that. Interesting thing happening here in Massachusetts. We've got a Republican governor and a democratically controlled legislature that are working together to promote economic development. And even though these are campaign times, and even though these are crazy times politically, here in Massachusetts, people are working together. And the democratically controlled legislature gave the governor a $1 billion economic development bill, the second $1 billion economic development bill that's been delivered to the governor's desk in the last 24 months. So the point here is what's happened over the last 12 months. What's happened for me in the last 12 months is that we have a second economic development bill. That economic development bill has money in it to help communities revitalize, to help businesses grow, and most importantly, to help people prosper. And we will be fully deploying somewhere between $600 million and $1 billion over the next several years to help continue the growth that's taking place. So very excited about that. We should note that what has recently transpired, news yesterday, is that Verizon has announced that they are moving their innovation center to Boston. A terrific project at North Station. It's a very exciting project. For those of you who have not seen renderings, think about Times Square. That's kind of what North Station is going to look like, with a mixed-use development that includes residential, includes office and innovation space, includes retail, and includes transportation services. So it's a really exciting project. What we need to note for this region is that Verizon is going to be moving its innovation hub from Waltham down to Boston. We need to take note of that. One, there's an opportunity, and there's also a lesson to be learned there. So we may talk a little bit about that. So we're lucky to have panelists here who are going to share tremendous insight as we talk for the next 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, and then open it up for questions. Want to make sure that those of you here that have pressing questions of the panel and want to take back what you learned to the people that you work with to promote economic development and vitality around the region, get those questions answered. So hopefully it'll be a lively discussion. I'm going to ask the panel first that question. Tell us a little bit about what is new over the last year. And I'm going to start with Bob Buckley, who I affectionately referred to as Governor Buckley here. Bob's been involved in so much. I'm going to ask Bob just to say a minute, and all panelists just to say a minute about yourself, and then answer this first question, which is tell us a little bit about what you've observed over the region or beyond in the last 12 months that folks who are attending here should hear more about.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And
everybody calls me Jay, please.
Okay, Jay.
Governor.
Governor. Let me just say, I echo what Jay said, that there's a lot going on, but I don't want to go back in time and talk about the issues that we know are very pressing for day-to-day activities. But if you haven't had dealings with Jay's office, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen a lot of administrations come and go, and they all have the same mantra that, we're going to work with the communities, we're going to be out there. And between Jay and I deal with, I think Peter Milano is here, they're very responsive, and they're realistic. They tell you what is possible, what is probable, and where their vision is. So I strongly encourage you to take advantage of that resource.
Bob, it sounds like you have a pending grant application before. You're supposed to be talking about yourself.
Right.
I know that's not a subject you'd like to broach, but...
But there were three things that I see happening that I think are exciting. One, dovetails what Middlesex 3 started out to do, which was to increase communication between the policymakers and the ones who have to work under those policies. 5 or 6 years ago when we started Middlesex 3, the idea was, if we get the policymakers and the users in a room and say, what are our common goals, what are our common interests, where do we see ourselves going, recognizing that we all have individual and perhaps collective special interests, there is a commonality among all those things, and the communication has been tremendous. And I think one of the things that has come out of that, and if you want to talk about something that I see as new, I think virtually every community, maybe there are a few exceptions, but every community in the Middlesex 3 corridor has taken the leap to develop or add a position called an economic development director. And to me, that is a big step, because I think these communities realize that doing business the old way just doesn't make it. You need someone who's in tune with what's going on, what the private industry is thinking about, what they're desiring. And in all fairness, those who are running the town government or serving on the various boards, there's a limited amount of time to do that. So these communities that have gone out there and retained or established a position of an economic development, it's not just a Bob Buckley walking in and say, you know what, you've got to have amenities to support the business community, or else they're not going to come. This is what's demanded. And that's Buckley speaking. Leave it. He's got a personal agenda, right? But now, when you have someone on the payroll who's out there looking for the municipality's best interests, they're saying, this is reality. Everything is interrelated and has to work together. And I think that's a major change. I hope it continues. The people that I've dealt with in those positions are bright. They're in tune with what the market demands, and I think that over time, it's going to enhance that communication, which I started with. And the final thing, which you brought up, which I see a lot of things happening in that realm, are these innovation centers. I mean, we are an innovation economy. What's the newest and greatest idea, and how do you get that idea to marketplace? And in this corridor between the University of Lowell being, with their innovation center, Northeastern establishing one in Burlington, other universities or private industries looking at creating these innovation centers where they can germinate the ideas that someday we're going to make our lives a lot better and add to our economic pinnacle where we are in the world. I think this is a tremendous recognition of the talent in this area. So,
thanks, Bob, for that. I should tell you all that you may or may not be aware, but the United States Army is looking to reinvent itself and looked around the country for the place to be in order to do that. And one of the places that they ended up looking was, in fact, in the Middlesex 3 area. Visited MITRE, talked to Northeastern in Burlington. They ended up choosing to go to Austin, Texas, but as disappointed we were that they did not take advantage of what we had here. We went from really the Army is going to go to the Boston area to the Army should be in the Boston area. And when I say the Boston area, they came out here and was very impressed with the innovation they see out here. So there is something to be said, even when you don't win the prize, there is something to be said about being part of the competition. And in fact, Middlesex 3 showed real well. Bob, thanks very much. Katie, introduce you. Oh, I'm sorry. No, Katie, I'm sorry. So you just had me mixed up now. Jessica's down there. I got that. So as I
failed to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Bob Buckley from Forest.
Bob Buckley, permitting specialist and a guy who has not only knows where all the bodies are buried, may have buried a few of them over the years around here. So as I introduce Katie, I also want to mention another guy who has buried probably more bodies than Bob. And Tom Tinlin's here from Howard Stein Hudson. And Tom is a former administrator at the MassDOT and a great all-around guy. Tom, it's great to see you here. Governor sends his regards as always. So good to see you. Katie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Enright. I'm a civil engineer with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm the manager of the Chelmsford office, which is in the Middlesex 3 district. I'm also on the board of Middlesex 3. I have found that in the last year, it's become a lot more about the customer or the employee. I think, as Bob said, a lot of communities have hired economic development coordinators to find out essentially what companies want and what they need. And zoning has been started to change to make it a more employee-friendly, customer-friendly environment. So I think what we've found is that we've found a lot of stresses in other types of modes of transportation. We've become looking at a lot of MassWorks grants for things like sidewalks, things like pedestrian signals, bicycle accommodations, to get people out of their cars and actually have an experience. I think that has a lot to do with the economic development coordinators and realizing that these are the types of amenities that are going to bring people to their towns and cities and make them a desirable place to locate or relocate.
Thanks very much. And the MassWorks program is a program that's run out of my office. The legislature reauthorized MassWorks last night at $250 million. So those of you who are familiar with the MassWorks program will be offering that for several more years to come. So you should be thinking more about that. Thanks. Corinne, thank you for being here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what, if anything, you've seen over the last 12 months that is different?
Sure. Am I live? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Corinne Molesky. I'm the Director of Interior Design with AHP Architects. We are in Chelmsford. We've been in Chelmsford for 9 years, primarily focused on corporate office spaces, medical manufacturing, and life science. Our work has taken us outside the state and outside the country, so we've seen quite a bit of development over the past number of years. Locally has been our focus along the Route 3 corridor in the last 12 months. So working with the Gutierrez Group in Westford and Burlington, Billerica, National Development in Bedford, and with DCU and Chelmsford on the 3-story building that they have there. So it's been neat to have jobs that are right around the corner versus a red eye down to Mexico, which is a little different. So 5 minutes away from a job site meeting has been exciting. So really what I've seen over the past 12 months, and as a designer, been able to work on firsthand, is really spicing up some of these spaces. you know, a lot of you know what it feels like when you walk into a tired lobby or a tired office space, and it just feels pretty drab. So we've seen a lot of investment be made in common areas, in the multi-tenant buildings. You know, really focusing on, well, what amenities are we going to give, you know, to echo what Katie's saying, what amenities are we going to give these people, and why are they going to want to lease space in this building? So designing game rooms, full-service cafeterias, training spaces that can be used in the common areas has been certainly very trending. And then on the tenant side, you know, really trying to draw new employees and retain them. DCU, for example, probably almost 50% of the first floor there is going to be dedicated to a fitness center, a wellness room, massage, a game room, a huge cafeteria. So they're really trying to, you know, retain their employees even just during the day. They don't want them to leave. They want them to stay and be happy and content. So we've really seen a lot of investment in that, and just people being open to, you know, some exciting, for me as a designer, some exciting things to, you know, to make the space look fun and draw out this millennial crowd.
Thank you, Corinne. Chad, I'm going to welcome you to introduce yourself, and as you're doing that, I want to thank iRobot for not only its presence here, but for the work that is done with us throughout the Commonwealth to promote innovation and technology. As Bob suggested, the innovation that takes place in this corridor is really remarkable, and iRobot is a leader in that. So, Chad, thanks very much. Introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chad Haskell. I'm the manager of the facilities and real estate team at iRobot. We've got about 650 employees in the Bedford area and over 1,000 globally. We're excited to be in Bedford in the Middlesex 3 region. We looked long and hard at in the last year for new headquarters, and we decided to remain in Bedford. And one of the reasons was, you know, the things we saw changing in the region. One was access, you know, and proactive communication with the Commonwealth around our facility, STEM education, and then with the town of Bedford and the discussions with them around permitting, zoning, additional transportation. And then the second was transportation. You know, we've got a lot of millennials coming in from the city that want to work and build and be part of the builder philosophy at iRobot, but transportation for them is difficult. We have 50 interns that turn over 3 times a year, and most of them are coming from the urban centers, the universities in town, and access to come out is either carpool or you know, public transportation, but the shuttle has been a godsend to iRobot, and for those to retain those interns, that 60% of those become iRoboters eventually over time. And then, you know, we talked about walkability and how at Crosby Drive and the Exchange do we increase walkability, and talking with Bedford about possibly bringing bikes like Hubway that we have, you know, in the urban centers there, where we can drive down to 3rd Ave on our bike, where we can walk, you know, take it through the MITRE Center and the other paths that we have into Bedford and downtown has been great. And so working with the town around that, and then, you know, the police and fire, and just coming in and having the accessibility to give us walkthroughs and tell us what we should improve on and what we're doing well. So it's been a great partnership, and we've really seen an enhanced improvement in the past year on that. And I think it's because of, you know, the, you know, coordinated efforts with the team in the Middlesex 3 to say, you know, we need to have a stronger partnership throughout with the tenants, the developers, as well as the towns in the Commonwealth. And it's been a great to see over the last 12 months. So we appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad. I do want to congratulate all the municipal officials who are here. The story that Chad talks about and the relationships that exist with municipal officials in this region are very strong, and it's a calling card that you all have. So I know John's here, Rick, Paul's around somewhere. Paul Cohen was in the back. I know he's moved somewhere else. Oh, there you are. Hey, he moved up. Very, very good. And all the boards of selectmen and planning board people and everyone else, congratulations on all you're doing. Jessica, we'll let you introduce yourself, and Corinne talked a little bit about what employees are expecting. I'm hoping you're going to talk about what you hear from the HR side from employees.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Levesque. I'm in Human Resources at Instrumentation Laboratory Company. Instrumentation Laboratory, which we call IL, is headquartered globally here in Bedford, Massachusetts. We have a 400,000 square foot facility where we design, develop, and manufacture medical instrumentation, which is then shipped globally around the world. Every day on average, just to give you a reference point, 1.5 million tests are run on our instruments around the world. So chances are you've all had your blood run through our instruments, just so you know. So from an employer side, I will tell you, we own our building, so that kind of gives us a nice advantage, and no disrespect to all the management companies. But we're able to really innovate and try new things at our company to keep our employees. We tend to hire people who then stay their whole career. I have plenty of people who've been with us 30 to 50 years at IL. In addition to the fact we hire a lot of millennials and people right out of school. Right now we have 50 interns in North America, so we're busy on that front as well. Things we focus on tend to be things that we can control. So, for example, we have a cafeteria on site that we significantly subsidize. We've set it up so our employees can eat breakfast and lunch for a total of $5 a day. And the reason we do that is we have almost 1,000 people in the building. And for those of you who have driven through Bedford Center, no disrespect to my town Bedford manager people who are here, it's very
Rick Reed is
congested.
right over there.
Yeah,
He's
Rick
taking
Reed,
notes.
where's
Yeah.
Rick? It's not your fault, Rick, I know that. If I had 1,000 people try to go out and get lunch, it would be a mess. So we set it up so all of my employees can take this advantage of this. We have over 200 people in the manufacturing line, so we wanted to make sure it was very affordable and good quality food. We also have set it up so that people can access the cafeteria not throughout the day, we're working on that, but also, you know, you can buy snacks. We're looking right now at maybe take-home meals. That would be great for those of us who have to feed people at home and don't like cooking. And maybe some mini marts and things like that, just to keep people, you know, busy in the building and try to enhance that quality of life if they're not running out doing errands at lunch. Maybe they can do them at work and take a walk at lunch, because wouldn't that be great? So that's the sort of things we tend to be focusing on, and that's sort of a trend that we're noticing. And honestly, we hire so many employees, I get a lot of feedback from them, and I'll hear things like, well, my old building had, or my old company had, and well, what did they have? You know, and then we get to explore that.
I have to tell you that as I go around from company to company and see what people like IL do for their employees, I then go back to my office as a good public employee, and I say, man. So I did a groundbreaking just recently. Analog Devices has announced that it is going to position its global headquarters in Wilmington. And so last month there was a groundbreaking for 400,000, I think it was 400,000 square feet. At the groundbreaking was the Cookie Monster truck. Who's had a Cookie Monster ice cream sandwich? It was awesome. So Cookie Monster truck is in front of my building at the across from the State House every now and then, and the Cookie Monster truck was at Analog Devices. I told the people there that I finally figured out the difference between being a public employee and a private employee. The Cookie Monster truck in front of my building, I have to pay for the cookie ice cream sandwich, and and it's free. Analog Devices was free. So, Tom, I had two. I had one for you, and one. So, kind of, Jessica, you kick us into the next area, which is trends, things that we're going to see in the next 5 years. It's interesting to hear how the business community is competing with each other by providing more and more amenities, helping to get people to places more conveniently, Chad, as you've said, and providing more amenities and lightening up things, as you said, Corinne. I'm wondering what you see in the trends in the next 5 years. So anyone can jump in. Jessica, you want to?
All right, I'll jump on that. So one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of employees want to give us a lot of feedback a lot of the time and impact change. And I love that. It's a lot to manage, but I love it. Because if people are telling us, I want this, I want that. So for example, we have a new activity board that my intern from WPI put up. And it's all these activities that are open to all employees. Some of them are athletic. So we're in the Mass Biotech Softball League. We won last year. We're going for it again. Soccer. We have groups that cycle together, people that play tennis together. We have an ice hockey team that plays across the street from us every Wednesday morning, and it's all IL employees. We have people who go gardening at lunch at a community garden in the next town over. So it really runs the gamut. And I think, honestly, one of the things I see is the employees love making a suggestion and seeing it through and making an impact. So if they have that ability to do that, we actually put a whole procedure together of how to request a new activity group.
Do you have a sense whether that is unique to a suburban company versus an urban company? And what we hear oftentimes is that suburban companies are trying to figure out ways of bringing people out from the core city and keeping them here. So do you need to do more than what is happening with the companies that might be in Boston and Cambridge in order to get
Right.
your employees
So
around?
our technology is really based on a certain type of assays. So frankly, we're not competing against the Googles and Amazons really for that software talent and that type of thing. I'm really looking for engineers that can build stuff and want to problem solve. So frankly, the demographic I'm looking for compared to Kendall Square is going to be a little bit different. But with that being said, I'm still hiring a lot of millennials and a lot of mid-career and senior career people. I think it's really that people want to have an impact. They don't want to be a number. They don't want to be one of 1,000 in a building. They want to feel like they're able to enjoy their time at work. And so that's a good way to do it. I think, and this is something that Chad and I could probably both do, because we're in the suburbs, we get to do the gardening easily. We get to do the running club that goes out at lunch and runs on the beautiful trails in Bedford. We get to do the cycling. So to my mind, a lot of the people move to the suburbs out of the city originally, if you think about it as you progress through life, because you want more screen space, you want more space, maybe you're having children, whatever. So we, as employers, can probably take advantage of that, because I'm in a beautiful facility in Bedford. We have conservation land almost all around us, except for the backside is Hanscom. So it's gorgeous. I honestly watch some of the birds outside my window, and it's a beautiful moment to have during the day. And I think we have, we're well positioned to take advantage of that.
That's great, thanks.
Yeah.
Others? Chad, go ahead.
Similarly, am I on?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
on, sorry.
Similarly, we have the same challenges being, out in the suburbs. But for me, as a facilities and real estate professional, it starts with the asset. And, we've been fortunate to have two great landlords with the Davis Company up until last month, and now Jumbo Capital. And, if you can't get the environmental conditions correct in your building, then it doesn't matter if you've got the Cookie Monster truck outside, because people can't work, it's not happy. So
I'm not so sure about that. Ice cream sandwich makes up for a lot, Chad.
Noted. So we're great. We're fortunate to have great, strong partners on the landlord side, and also to work with them and partner with them to provide the amenities that come with that. We have a cafeteria service, which is great, but it's one cafeteria service, and the menu changes 5 times a week, and that's it. So to have the ability to bring food trucks in, to do barbecues, to have a happy hour at the end of the day that the landlord provides with acoustic guitar and beer and wine, in the summertime, it's great. And then you layer on these amenities on top of that, and the wellness that we're bringing in. We have the yoga, the boot camp, the massage. We've got looking at other opportunities so that our employees, when they're here in the suburbs and they drive out either from southern New Hampshire or the urban centers, that they can get the things done that they need to do. That if they're working in Kendall Square, they can do their banking. They can go see an optometrist. They can run their errands, and we can bring that there. We're looking into pet care and grooming, minor dental exams. We have an optometrist bus that comes once a month. We have car detailing. These things that take up time outside of the work, we want to provide at iRobot and in the region, so that folks can free up their time when they're at home and on the weekends. So we really want to strike that balance, because we know that we're competing against the Googles, the Facebook, the software companies that are in Kendall Square that only have really cool space and amenities, but they're in Kendall Square and they're right in downtown Boston on the Charles River, and so it's really hard to compete. So at a minimum, we need to have a cool building that works and has a great partnership with the landlord, but then bring those amenities in that not only do they want to be builders at iRobot, but they also are happy that they can get most of their stuff done that they would normally do in an urban center. So those are the things we're looking at.
Chad, I'm wondering if you could answer this. Corinne, you may be able to answer this as well, but are there things that people have tried that you haven't seen work? I mean, you've been around facilities for a long time, and some ideas that people thought might work and haven't worked?
There's some. I think that there's always when you employ employees of 600 people, there's always a group that wants to do that. But we've tried to do more. We have an Avanti market, a grab and go market, where you have a little card, or you swipe your card, and we tried to stock it with all fresh, healthy food. And after about 10 days, my manager came to me and said, where's my Diet Coke? Right. I need, this is, we don't want to force, food and diet and wellness on people. We want to give them the variety. So let's get a balance. So we went back, we struck a balance of, the healthy options as well as, the Snickers bar and the Diet Coke that you need at 3:30 in the afternoon to keep you going. So that's one example of things that we tried and we had to improve on.
That's fair. Corinne, you've been doing innovative space management for a while, planning. What have you seen that's the trends for the next 5 years, and maybe a couple of examples of things that didn't work so well?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a general, everybody's heard the whole collaborative vibe, and I think there's a general idea that that is what is right for everybody. So I think it's really dependent on the way that the company culture works. So when we come into a job, we're really focused on understanding, how do your groups work together? Is collaborative and all open office suitable for you? Or is that just going to be a problem? Certain areas it might do well, other areas maybe not. It sounds like Jessica and Chad really have a handle on listening to their employees and those needs so they don't get too far down that path in terms of the design. As far as the five-year lookout, I think there's a very high level of expectation. And I think that a lot of companies are really striving. And I think the millennial factor is for certain types of groups and types of companies, it's important. So they're thinking about, well, how am I going to attract these people? How far am I going to go? And I think the idea is that they need to paint the full picture. For me, I have a 22-minute commute, and it's really exciting to me, given the life stage that I'm in. So that's a huge factor. But then when you, like Chad's saying, when you start layering on these amenities and the services that you're bringing, I think, like I said, there's a very high level of expectation, and you're seeing it on the town level. Like Bob said, people bringing in economic development. We're really trying to paint a full picture of what it can be, and the next 5 years I think will be a process of reteaching some of these companies, and they're relearning what the employees want and how to bring it to them in a feasible way.
I'll ask you and Chad the same question. So when we started a million years ago, the handy-dandy formula was 3 people per 1,000 square feet. And then somewhere it went to 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I actually had a company in recently that was talking about 10 people per 1,000 square feet. I'm wondering what you see in terms of space management utilization, and are people going to go to that extreme 10,000 square feet? I'm not sure that I could actually physically be in 100 square feet. Are we going to go that direction? Do you see the pendulum swinging back at some point and people saying, no, we're too much on top of each other and we need to strike a healthy balance?
Do you want to speak?
No,
Yes, I think what we're seeing now is we're trying to strike a balance between office space, labs, open and closed collaboration, which is our conference room meetings, community space, as well as amenities. So we're trying to blend that in. So we're not saying, okay, we're going to have, a 6x6 cube and your personal space is going to be 110 square feet, and we'll have primary circulation, we'll make up the rest with some conferencing. So we're really looking at it holistically and on an enterprise level to understand, how we work as individuals, how these neighborhoods within the corporation work, and each groups work differently. Our software group works different than our commercial operations group. So we have to plan accordingly for that, and the percentage of amenities, collaboration, and workspace and labs are different for each. So, we're trying to go in and set a standard of how we want to have a look and feel of our office and our corporation, but then empower the teams with a kit of parts to build a certain workspace environment for them that they can be successful in.
Right. Yeah, I would echo that as well. I think there's also a factor of people working from home, and that being a perk for them. So maybe their space is more hotel driven and they're just having a touchdown spot. So I think that changes some of the square footage numbers that way. Really, and I know you guys probably agree, you have this office space and you have the amenities, but what our clients on the life science side are always saying is the real money is in those labs. So really that's the heart of the investment, and they need the talent pool, and they need all this surrounding investment to draw the crowd.
Great, thanks. So Katie, what do you see in the next 5 years?
So what I've seen Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Over the course of the last few years is I spend more time before the company gets there. So as far as getting the building there, getting the parking there, getting it approved through the different towns and cities, nobody wants to come to a place where the zoning is this very tight box. You have to be this tall, you have to have this much parking, you have to have this many trees. A lot of towns and cities, or you have to have this specific use, and it has to be, thousands of feet from the place that you're allowed to live. So a lot of towns and cities are looking at reformulating their zoning and just allowing it to be looser and allowing people to be innovative and bring their ideas to the table and work with them to get them approved. So you're allowed to be a little bit more bold. I think that's what the town of Chelmsford has used with their 129 overlay district. You're allowed to come in with a project that you think is good and find a special permit way to get that approved without a lot of red tape, without a lot of zoning board of appeals meetings, without a lot of planning board meetings. You're allowed to put build homes in an area that's walkable to your business now. You're allowed to put restaurants next to your retail and commercial space and industrial space. And there are ways to make this all work. So I think that a lot of communities are going towards a little bit more of a looser model so that people can come in and get that immediate satisfaction that they want from permitting a project.
Governor, streamlined, convenient permitting, myth or fact?
Well,
Depends where you
it depends where you are. I will say this, that I echo what Katie says, that I actually think a lot of the motivation right now, a lot of the push is coming from the municipalities. Years ago, you'd go to a meeting and someone would say, well, when I moved to this town, this is the way it was. And I think what you see now is people at the administration level and the professionals that are doing the day-to-day grind work, the planners, whatever, get it. They understand that we're in a very competitive environment that respects no municipal borders, that, if Chelmsford is more attractive than Burlington, they're going to be in Chelmsford. They want to be able to put a stake in the ground, and they want to be able to get in quickly, and they want to be able to grow with certainty. When you say, what do I see coming in the next 5 years, I think that many of the municipalities, the professional staff, are being proactive. They're driving some of the debate. We just came off a couple experiences on major retail in Burlington and Woburn where there was a debate where, what is the future of retail? That's a pressing question, as it is with office. And a lot of the push came from the planners saying, we need to know, what do you need? What can we do? How can we preserve? How can we protect the asset? Because this is important to the town. And it's no longer, it's the big bad developer coming in, wanting to make his money and then leave. This is important for our sustainability. How can we work with you and make things work? I hope that trend continues. I do think that you're going to see a migration from the Kendall Squares, the Somervilles, as the space becomes increasingly more expensive, to these surrounding communities. And I do think that Lowell is rapidly becoming a focal point for innovation and development in this area. And those two, ends of the barbell, so to speak, the corridor, the bar that connects it, is going to see a tremendous amount of growth. And a lot of the debate now is being prompted by those who are the policy makers versus the users, which I think leaves a little more credibility to it. And I see it in receptivity, at least into multifamily housing, which is a necessity to work in appropriate areas to stabilize and attract those people who are going to work. So there's an attitudinal shift, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I would congratulate the municipal people that have been able to do that. We're going to open it up for questions, so think about your questions. I'm going to tell you a quick story that supports what Bob was saying. So I'm the city manager in Chelsea, and Chelsea had never had a rail hotel. The only hotel that had been there growing up was the type of place that you rented by the hour, not by the night. And yet we were so close to Boston that Chelsea was actually part of Boston for 100 years. So found a way to get the first hotel done. The first hotel got the second hotel got the third and the fourth. And finally I was feeling pretty good about where we were and had developed a great relationship with the developer. So I said to the developer, I said, why are you building all of your hotels in Chelsea? They now have 4 hotels, and then there's one other. So this developer has 4 hotels in Chelsea, 1.8 square miles, 4 hotels. I said to her, why are you building all your hotels in Chelsea? Why aren't you putting one in Revere and one in Medford and one in Malden? And she said, you know, Jay, when people are on the internet, they don't know where Chelsea is. They just know you're close to Boston. So Chelsea, Revere, Malden, the distance from Boston really doesn't matter. What matters is that the streamlined permitting, the way that you treat us here, makes us want to just continue to invest in this community. That was a loud statement to me about the power that we have on the municipal level, on the government level, to encourage private investment, making things easy. And you talked about the permitting process and having a little bit more flexibility. The flexibility, Tom, I have to tell you this story. So first hotel goes up. This is a big deal in Chelsea, right? Finally, we're getting a real hotel, Wyndham Hotel. And I'm driving by the site like a proud father. I've finally been able to deliver a hotel for my community. And I'm looking, and the foundation seems to be close to the sidewalk. But what do I know? I've never built a hotel before, you know, so I keep on driving by. Finally, after a couple of weeks of driving by, I had to call my building inspector, and he went down and he said, sure enough, they were using the wrong set of plans. Kevin, they weren't your plans. Where's Kevin? Kevin Dondre? There you are. They weren't your plans. So, you're in the city of Boston, Tom. The foundation is 8 feet closer to the sidewalk than it's supposed to be. What does the city of Boston say? Rip it out and start over again, right? What did the city of Chelsea say? Geez, that's too bad. Let's figure out how we can get something else to compensate for that. And it didn't matter, right? I mean, we get municipal officials, we sometimes get wrapped up in these things. 8 feet closer didn't really matter. We still had a nice planting strip, and it's been very successful. So the point there is that developer took note of that, and that got me 2 more developments afterwards by being a little bit more flexible. So, okay, enough of story time.